Thank you.
Good evening. You're on the air.
Good evening. I'm from Baltimore County. I teach there, and my question is, why has so much of the American and Maryland history and geography been taken from the elementary years?
I, for one, was not aware that a lot of the American history or Maryland history had been taken out of the curriculum. We established broad guidelines which mandate that children be exposed to both state history and American history. To some extent, these broad guidelines can be interpreted on the local level. I was not aware of any great diminution in the amount of exposure that children had to history.
Well, there has been quite a bit in the county. Sixth grade teaches India, and the children don't even know the states in the United States, and it's really very sad. I don't think you can get good American citizens when you start to teach it in the 9th and 10th grade.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night. Good evening. You're on the air.
My name is Ruth Newman. I live in Columbia, Maryland. And my question concerns, I have a son in the Level 4 Specific Learning Disabilities program. He attends school out of district. With this talk of school closings all over the state, what is going to happen to these kids? Are they going to be forgotten in the shuffle? Because I know this program is relatively new. I mean, I think it just started when we moved here a couple of years ago. And how do we go about ensuring that these kids aren't moved around every 6 months or every year, which is very detrimental to their security and education in general?
Emphatically, they cannot be. We can't allow them to be forgotten. I think that it's clear in my experience with school closings to date that one of the things that local boards have given attention to are the problems of handicapped kids, the dilemma that they face, and particularly as issues of mainstreaming become more and more prevalent, one will find handicapped youngsters in nearly every public school across the state. And if it were the case that no school could be closed that had handicapped youngsters in it, the conclusion would have to be that no school could be closed because it would become impossible. I think the challenge, the burden which we bear as staff members, as board members at both the local and the state level, is to be about that business with sensitivity and with attention to the kinds of special issues that creates for handicapped youngsters.
Back to the caller.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. I also know that it's difficult no matter what school they close. The school in particular is one of the few self-contained classrooms still left in Howard County. And these children who are mainstreaming beautifully. They work in teams, and this is, to my mind, more important. But my concern is that I've seen this kind of thing before where it's a lot of talk and no action. And my concern is my son has done beautifully in he's been in that program exactly 1 year.
Well, let me say this in order to move the callers along. What do you say you and I hold Dr. Hornbeck to his word that he has given you?
All right, I'll do that.
Thank you very much. Good night. Good evening. You're on the air.
Yes, my name is Gloria Horner, and I'm from Somerset County.
Yes.
And my question is, why don't we, the local public in the local counties, have more of a say in the policy-making decisions before these decisions are made?
I'd like to respond to that. I think there are various avenues through which you can have something to say. In the first place, you have your school board, your local board. In the second instance, there is the state board, and we invite the public to our meetings and to the hearings that we hold almost ad infinitum. There's always a hearing to which you may come and express your opinion. You may express your views to your local elected officials, who in fact must provide a good share of the funding for the local school systems, and to your state officials, who must provide almost all of the rest of the money. You've got to speak up. It's important that not just parents, but that others in the community reflect to us your views about public education in the state. We need those views in order that we might respond appropriately.
Back to the caller.
Okay, thank you. It's just that something has happened here recently with our local school, and they were going to make a major policy change, and we were not going to be informed of it until after the policy change had been made. And when we found out about it, we were quite upset, and so we called a public meeting, and they have now delayed their policy or their change in policy until a year from now. And we were just quite upset. We do have an appointed representative at this time, but in 80 we will have an elected representative, or hopefully will. So that was my question, and I do appreciate his answer.
Thank you. Good night. Good evening. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Yes, I would like to know what Mr. Hornbeck is doing in terms of equal opportunity. I know the stationery of the state says affirming equal opportunity in principle and practice. How has his appointment procedure concurred with this, and what is he doing to encourage it in the local school systems?
Well, there are a variety of things that we've been doing in the department itself, trying to put our own house in order, for example. We have been pursuing an affirmative action policy there rather aggressively that during my tenure in office has increased the percentage of minorities on the staff of the department from 14.5% to 20.5% in only 3 years. There are a variety of initiatives that we've taken that relate to local school systems. It is my view that Project Basic itself is directly related to issues of equal opportunity, because what it says to a local school system is you have a responsibility to produce the kinds of educational experiences that are going to allow the young people of this state, without regard to race or national origin or handicapping condition and so on, to function effectively as adults as they move through this society. The 4-year-old program that we've pushed so aggressively over these past couple of years is also directed to issues of equal opportunity. The manner in which both the board and I and others have tried to focus on issues of funding equalization in the state, and pointing out the fact that the present condition is of a character that funding is in fact unequal, is directly related to those kinds of issues. Those are among some of the initiatives. One could also talk about the Youth Employability Initiative. There are a variety of things of that character.
All right, your comment?
Thank you. I would say promotional practices ought to be considered also.
Thank you very much. Good night. Good evening. You're on the air.
Yes. Hello?
Yes.
I'm Kathy Smith from Oakland in your county.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is with a segment of students who oftentimes get lost in school while teachers attempt to teach the average students, and that is the gifted and talented students. And my question is, what do you see, Mr. Hornbeck or Mr. Seitz, as the future of state involvement in the gifted and talented program?
I'd like to first mention that the number of young people statewide involved in programs for the gifted and talented over the last 3 years has quadrupled. We believe that is a significant number of children whose needs have to be met. We certainly agree with the focus on special education, but at the same time we have to make sure that each child reaches the full limit of his potential. That has been accomplished with some few children, not with enough. I think there is great sentiment on this board now for increasing even more our commitment to the gifted and talented. If you have a child who is gifted and talented, you ought to look into first some of the summer programs that will be coming up very soon, and secondly toward urging your local board to develop good gifted and talented programs.
A comment?
My question basically was what you see as the future of the state involving itself in it.
The state will continue to provide both fiscal assistance to the local subdivisions and consultation as to how to set up such programs.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good night. Good evening. You're on the air.
Yeah, Al and I would like to talk to Mr. Hornbeck.
Yes, go right ahead.
Mr. Hornbeck,
Yes, sir.
I live in the Middle River area, and my 3 children came through Stemmers Run, Middlesex Elementary, Stemmers Run Junior High, and Kenwood High. One of the problems that we've had in this area in reference to education is the book learning aspect of education. Now, we've had all 3 children come home with mimeograph papers in math and English and geography, and some of them that were not readable. Now, where are the books? Now, the Board of Education and you and Mr. Sipes declare that you're doing the best to give these children the best of education.
Well, can we say it this way? You're concerned that the books are not being provided?
The books are not being provided.
Yes. All right, let's get a comment.
I think that we have seen over the last several years a decline in the purchase of books and materials, and that has its roots in one source. That is, in many school systems, they simply don't have the funds to provide those books, and the money that they do have is directed in largest measure to teachers, to personnel. The listeners might be interested to know that in the last 2 years, the amount of money that has had to be given to the purchase of fuel has doubled, and the estimate now is that by the school year of 1988-89, that it will grow 600% more. And I know many school systems across the state right now, not next year or the year after, but right now, who are having to divert dollars at this moment from books and material sources of funds into the purchase of fuel oil.
Well, then you're diverting educational money for the books to keep the system to turn out children that don't know nothing after they get through the school year.
That it is very difficult, and I regret deeply when a dollar has to be put into a furnace in order to provide the heat that allows a child not to get sick instead of providing a book. I would far rather provide a book.
Thank you very much.
What is the percentage of books that goes into the classroom per child?
I simply don't know that particular percentage, and it would vary from one school system to the other.
Thank you for your call. Good night. Good evening. You're on the air.
Yes, I'd like to know in recent years, many schools have been built that are open space schools. I'd like to know the advantages of an open space school as far as for the teacher in teaching and the student in learning, because I can't think of any.
I will yield to the superintendent, who is a professional educator.
The theory of the open space school is that it provides a flexibility, a freedom that allows teacher and child together to adjust to a variety of needs. The fact is that some children and some teachers don't function very well in that context, and other teachers and other pupils do. In fact, I was just reading an article in the newspaper today directed at that issue, and my wife and I were commenting on the fact that there's a certain sense in which one of our children does better in the more structured kind of context and the other in the more open kind of context.
I agree with you. I would think that gifted and talented children could perform very effectively in an open space school. However, I work in a poor urban community in Baltimore City, and the school is new, and it's completely open space, and it's created more problems for the teacher and the student. There are just too many distractions, I believe, for the average student to learn and concentrate. When you're competing, as a teacher, you're competing with a teacher near you, the noise level's high. I think that as a teacher, you do more patrolling and trying to get everyone's attention than you can teaching.
Thank you very much.
Unless the student is very mature and has quite a bit of self-control and discipline, which isn't the case usually.
Thank you for your call. Good night. Good evening. You're on the air. Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
My name is Emily Wolfson. I'm in Randallstown, Baltimore County, Maryland. Now that the accountability law has given us the mechanism to judge the performance of schools throughout the state, and given the fact that in Maryland, education is a state function, delegated in part to the city and county school boards, what do you, Dr. Hornbeck, see as your responsibility and your prerogatives in answering the needs of those children not performing at grade level?
Well, that's a great big question. A lot of answers. One has to do with providing the context for learning, providing things like the Principals Academy, identifying things like the 4-year-old early childhood program that have proven to be effective, of trying to urge an equalization of funding that makes sense, of saying to parents, to teachers, to principals, to youngsters, and to state superintendents, in fact, that there is a level of competency, there is a level of achievement below which one may not fall and still graduate, and provide the kinds of learning opportunities that help kids achieve those levels.
Okay, a comment?
What you're saying then is that you are suggesting to the local school boards that they follow your recommendations and your leadership, but in fact you do not have the prerogatives of mandating. Am I correct?
No, there are some things where I suggest, and there are other things where it is mandated. Project Basic and the graduation prerequisites, for example, are and will be mandated by the State Board of Education.
Okay, thank you very much. Good night. Good evening, you're on the air.
Good evening, my name is Elizabeth Marr of Baltimore City. May I address Dr. Hornbeck, please?
Of course.
Dr. Hornbeck, in your opinion, who has the right to dictate curriculum, the community or the professionals?
Well, the fundamental responsibility for determining particular curriculum lies, for the most part, with local boards of education. And inasmuch as a local board of education is made up of lay citizens, that's who it is. That is, in Maryland, qualified by working with the staff of the local school system, but it is also qualified by a process that was established by the State Board of Education and within which local boards must operate, in which books and curricula, instructional materials are subject to a review of one kind or another in each of the local subdivisions.
Back to the caller.
Thank you, Dr. Hornbeck. You've been most helpful.
Thank you.
Good night. Good evening, you're on the air.
Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, I'm a student in Allegheny County, the city of Cumberland, and we are all aware of the various programs being established for the handicapped student in the state. But as the caller mentioned earlier, on the other end of the continuum, what are your plans for advanced programs in the future on the high school level to teach the students of higher than average ability, or to use the cliche, gifted? During the school year, there in Allegheny County no programs whatsoever, and also many of the students are not made aware of the summer programs, so therefore they can't take advantage of them.
Okay.
I would say that if what you say is in fact true, Allegheny County is atypical. One of the difficulties, though, I might cite in small counties is the fact that you know, there are only so many specialized programs you can offer in a small system. What we'd like to see developed would be more regional centers where perhaps Allegheny and Garrett County might share a center for the gifted and talented. We have not yet mandated such things, but we certainly would support them.
A comment?
Okay, yes, thank you very much. I'll be looking for programs in the future. However, for many months, years, there have been talk of programs, and it just seems to be all talk. And the only action that takes place is with special education. In the high school, 3 new special education teachers were hired in just 1 year, and there was program set up for this, and there seems to be no problem. But with the gifted, there's so many bugs, problems, and nothing seems to get off the ground.
I suggest that you go to see your guidance counselor. They should have information about the summer programs for the gifted and talented.